Hello and welcome to Debrief 3.
Woo.
Woo!
Yay.
She's not happy I clicked your mug first.
Oh yeah, I didn't even notice.
Thanks, Gal.
Hi, how's everybody's week been?
It was okay until today.
Hi, Gal.
Aye.
A wee bit of a rough day today.
No, I did.
Mhm.
Bit of a soap opera in my class.
Sure,
It's
keeps
all
us
dealt
on our
with.
toes.
Aye, it's all dealt with now.
It was sports day on Monday.
But that was
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, it was good.
Holiday.
Could have done a
Tuesday.
sports day episode, I'm just thinking.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh.
But
But that's
Actually,
not today.
And then we were off on Tuesday, a little holiday.
Mhm.
It was lovely.
Yeah, Independence Day.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we celebrate the British Navy. Yeah, and freedom and yes,
Everything.
which is actually ties into what we're looking at this week.
Mhm. Nice.
Yeah, I have no icebreaker. Sorry, we're just
We'll launch in.
Alright.
That's
we'll
fine.
launch in. Yeah,
We kind of, what the icebreaker last week, we went on and on and on about
Yeah,
it.
did,
That's
yeah.
the longest icebreaker.
It's a long-winded one, that.
Yeah.
no, but people liked it. People were in the comments were like, "Keep traveling, keep talking."
I've seen that, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Aw, thank you.
They were like, "Keep finding new places to explore." And I was like, "Yeah, so thank you. You know who you are."
Yeah, and the old.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So this week we are going to talk about history and the importance of teaching history. And I am, if people don't know, my degree is in history. Before I studied primary teaching, I studied history at the university with the plan of becoming a history teacher at secondary.
Mm.
And then I did a placement in secondary, and they scared me. So we are now in primary.
Yay! That's
So,
basically.
Oh yes, absolutely.
So I am very pro teaching history, learn your culture. Yes.
Nice.
So let's go. So number one. So I will stop talking for a little bit. Why is it important to teach history to primary school students?
I feel like the most common answer is, don't repeat the mistakes of the past.
Yeah.
Like we look at it like that. But also, I mean, they love stories, and a story's even more exciting if it's real and it really happens.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I can actually relate to that.
Yeah.
'Cause-
I was thinking about your class.
Yes,
Yeah.
we're doing World War II in history, and they love it. And we're doing the Holocaust lesson, and I was a bit nervous about it, as Sarah knows. And I was very nervous about teaching this lesson because I was a bit like they're going to be maybe a bit emotional or something because they're quite an emotional bunch. But I said to myself, right, I'm just going to sit at the front. I'm just going to talk to them about this, like just talk to them like for 2 periods straight.
Oh, one. I'm sorry, I didn't know what year you were born.
And then I said, oh, I'm just going to talk to them for 2 periods straight
Yeah.
because that's what my history teacher used to do. He used to just sit at the front row, like just at the desks in the front row, and just talk to us. And I remember just like listening to him because the way he could tell a story was so good. And when I was doing that lesson, I just talked to them for like 2 periods. And then I looked at the clock and it was 1:15. I was like, we gotta wrap this up now. But they're all sitting there like this. Just
I know,
staring
but
at
it's
me.
good.
Yeah.
Like, and they're interested because I feel like if we're not teaching history in school, sometimes they're not going to hear about it anywhere else, especially But I do think it's important, especially for them to learn the history of where they are from.
Yeah.
Because in our school, we have such a diverse group of students where it's like some of them know their history and they're very passionate about it, but then some of them they don't know their history, and I'm just like, oh man, like you really should know about your culture and know what's happened. And like I find we have very little issues, and I actually did think we'd have more issues than we did, and we do, because like such different like cultural backgrounds in class, and we do have students from countries who are currently at war, and it's like I thought we would have seen more conflict in class, but actually them being educated about their history and what's happening is actually helping them to
understand
it.
That's true. And oftentimes I find, like, even with World War II, and as well, I'm doing Cyprus history at the moment. Like, you're, like, so in case you didn't know, Cyprus has been conquered by almost every nation under the sun in the history. So you're often talking about, okay, like the opposing side or enemies or whatever, and then it's a child's in the class, it's their country. So you're just like, oftentimes I'm just like, oh dear, this sounds so bad. But I'm like, look, this is, governments getting involved in this kind of thing. This is also in the past, like pretty much almost everyone in the class, their country has done something.
Yeah.
It's true.
And it's actually, I find they don't They don't
Yeah,
connect to that.
It doesn't phase them.
Yeah, yeah.
Because when I was talking about like Russia were in the Allies in World War II, but at the start they weren't.
Yeah.
So like I had to explain that, and then they're like, oh, and then they're actually like they didn't say anything about it. They just
But that's what I find here. The kids are so accepting of each other, and it's amazing. I love it. Like I love hearing about their cultural backgrounds. I love hearing about little bits of history, or like they'll tell me stuff about different countries. Like a girl in my class is Armenian, and she's telling me bits about Armenia that I definitely didn't know. And I'm just like, wow, like, and she's like, it's just so cool. I'm like, yeah, it is cool. Like, you know,
there's a kid in my class that tells me about like his culture and like all the food that they eat. I'm like, that sounds so nice.
Like, keep going. Yeah. Like, I think it's so important that kids understand their history and but then they don't use it for a negative thing. Like, this is gonna be a bit controversial, but where we're from, I feel like our history's taught negatively. And like I just feel like we're taught our history on our own side and we're not taught the other side. And then it causes the conflict, whereas we could be taught both sides. And when I studied history at university, we studied Irish politics and government. And it was from the other side than I am. And it was so eye-opening for me to see that as my side. But I wouldn't even say that like I don't care. But it's like, well, actually, we were wrong as well.
I think it's different from our history. I think because I didn't grow up, and neither did you during the Troubles. Like the Troubles just ended, wasn't right? So like I didn't grow up in that sort of environment, whereas like our parents did. And I think if you've experienced something like that, it is going to change your mindset.
Oh, absolutely.
And because I hadn't experienced the Troubles, I didn't have like none of that. Like, but that's not to say like stuff didn't happen when I've been like, but like we learned in school. And I did A-level history, I did GCSE history, but when we did GCSE history, my teacher was very one-sided, and we only listened to one side of, and it was like the side that was everyone was like it's the right side, and I'm like it's not though, because
it's like, can you say that when both sides are fighting for what they believe is right? Like it's no. I'm going off on a tangent here, but
no, but it's a good point. It's like, really, how do you teach history? You should teach it from a non-biased perspective.
100%. That's what I actually love here, and I love teaching history, and I love teaching history not from my country. Like,
I hate
we're doing ancient Egypt at the minute, and I love it. And we did ancient Greece before, and I started with Cypriot history, and I actually love teaching Cypriot history. I love teaching local history, and I love being able to take kids to places here, and like, so grade 3 are hopefully going to go to ancient Korean, and they're going to see like the Colosseum. They're going to see like ruins of stuff that we can, like an amphitheater, and like Colosseum's not the right word. But you know what I mean? Like, no, but like
nice school trip,
I know, and like my kids studied here at Kathia, and they can go and see it. Like it's here, and I'm like, no, go and see it. Yeah, that's what I love, get them excited. But I like teaching history when I can be like, this is what they thought. Because then I have no bias. Like I have no bias towards the country, so then it's like it's taught so nicely.
Because like where we're from, you do have that little bias, and you do.
You do. Like it's you can't help it.
But if I was to teach Northern Irish history, like I would have the because I only really knew one side. I'd never taught the other side, so I'm not really teaching it the right way. But
and that's hard too, because if the students know you're from one side, then they're more likely, if you are trying to be non-biased, that can cause problems, because they sort of think, oh well, like the ones like, why are you saying this, and are you really on our, it can all like it's almost helps to have someone who is not from the country giving then you just know, okay, they're seeing it from fresh eyes. And
can I go down a right tangent, right?
Okay. We are going one.
Okay, so I had to do RE in Catholic school for my A-level because my school didn't offer it, but I wanted to do it, and they said, right, you can go to St. Mary's next door and do it there for like shared education, But they would have done the same thing, cause it's the same curriculum. They used the same example, so it was the exact same thing I would have done in my own school. So I would have walked over to the school and and I was only like Protestant in the class, because everyone else had a green blazer and I was there with a black blazer, and I was like sticking out like a sore thumb, and it was like I don't know. I hadn't been friends with Catholics before, and like we would just talk to each other about like what do you do in church, what do you do in like a chapel, like different things. And then we did RE. So like I was obviously going to get asked questions about like what do we do.
What do you study?
And we went to Poland on like an RE trip, and I loved it. It was great, and I got to actually see both sides of the. We didn't sit and talk about the troubles for the whole trip. You know what I mean? 'Cause, you know,
we don't.
we don't.
It's true.
No. I love that trip. It was great.
Teach history. Yes. How do you make history engaging for younger students who may not yet appreciate significance? Yeah, that's what's tricky.
Yeah, so I've introduced I've introduced note taking in my history lessons now because I know they're going into high school. So we'll go through a PowerPoint, and every time there's a point that's written in red, they write it down in their notebook.
I remember that when I watched you teach.
So they get. So I'm sort of doing that. So it seems kind of almost the opposite. Like that doesn't seem so engaging. But some of them, I mean, they're learning it that way. And then I'm like, are you understanding what you're writing down? You know. And then, but also, like, I think if you're excited about it, it just feeds off onto them. Yeah. So this is my first time teaching Cyprus history. I mean, I've lived here 30 years now, and there's so much I don't know. Yeah. And I'm like, wow, this is so cool. This is so cool. And I'm even considering coming up with a tour guide, like a guide at the end, being like, you can go to all of these places from what we've learned in the lesson. And then we discuss things like, we link it to like, did you know that Cyprus is the first place where malaria was eradicated? And it was when the British occupied. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So they eradicate, things like that, finding interesting stories to fit in. Yeah.
Because your kids, do you have any Cypriot children in your class?
Yes, one or two.
Like, that still blows my mind here that we're like so culturally different, and it's like but they also then can go and visit. They can go and be little tourists, and off you go and visit.
Oh yeah, I love it. I mean, it's the Chinese students in my class that have visited the most places. Like I'll put pictures up. Oh yeah, I've been there, and I'm like, great.
But it excites them when they've been there.
Yeah.
When we started looking at Heraclea, some of my kids were like, "Oh, miss, is that like in Cyprus?" I was like, "Yes,
yeah,
it's a place."
Yeah.
And then so then some of them have gone since, and one of the girls, she brought me back pictures of her there, and mum sent them. We displayed them in class, and she like just was up and was presenting like where she'd been, but it made everyone else get excited about it because someone they knew had been. Like someone was there. And I find that when we're doing assembly, now I know it's not history, but it kind of is, you do a missionary story.
They love those.
Love a missionary story.
They love it. Yeah.
Because it's history, it's something that's happened, but it's something I can relate it to. Yeah. And then it's like if it's someone you met, like Sherry's doing at the minute, the story, and it's like she's talked to the lady. Wow. And it's just like
but as well, that reminds me, so our next
bring it to life.
Yeah. Our next topic is more modern Cyprus. So it is during 1974 when you've got the occupation and everything happening and the invasion. So I was saying some of you've got, family members that have gone through it. I mean, my dad went through that. So like because it's so near, you go and ask them for stories for next week's lesson. And,
100%.
And I'm looking forward to that because then it's like, okay, that's a historic account. Firsthand.
But that's good as well. And interviewing, when we studied history at uni, we were studying women in Ireland. Ooh. And they told us like it was women in Ireland, and it was like it was very feminist. It was very woo, like you talk about. So we were told to go and interview an older lady in our family. So I went to my granny, and my they were like, just interview your granny, or like, so some people were like, finding different, whatever. So I started questioning granny. I was like, so what did you want to do? Like, and granny wanted to join the police, which I had no idea. And I was just like, so granny's talking about this, and she was like making a joke. She's like, I'd have no troubles if I had joined the police. I was like, oh God, yes. But learning like that, and I was learning about things that happened in Northern Ireland from her perspective. Her living in a tiny little village outside in County Antrim, like her
That's so cool.
Yeah, and it was just like wow. But the interviewing people,
I think
it's just the
Yeah.
best way
But
to
like,
get
how,
it.
how
Yeah.
I mean, my grandparents too, so they're Northern Irish. Like interviewing, like this past summer, Granddad was just sharing all these stories about when he was a kid, and I was
Yeah.
just sitting there like,
I
whoa!
know.
Like, how often do we actually ask our family?
Yeah,
No,
about their life.
yeah,
well,
Yeah.
I asked like my mum worked in Derry, like
Mm.
London Derry, like and it was like quite a prominent place during the Troubles, like and even the stories like she'd say about working there, like it's crazy, like actually mental. I don't know why she did that, but
Yeah.
like that was like you wouldn't ever go to this Derry, like you just wouldn't go. Like nowadays now you just go, oh yeah, we're just going to Derry. Like me and Emma would just be, oh we're just going.
Yeah, I'm going shopping. I'm going to
Going to
see
McDonald's.
like yeah, it's just so blasé, but it's like
I remember
the
Mummy saying, yeah,
significance of it for our parents.
like
to go to
Mummy
certain
said,
areas.
like
Yeah.
when she was my age, like she would never just get the bus to Belfast. Like she would
Mom was
never
saying
done
that
that.
too.
Yeah.
Like, and there would be
Whereas
bomb
I-
scares too.
Whereas
Yeah.
I would just drive to Belfast
I
and
know.
I'm just going to
Yeah.
Belfast.
And for our kids, like saying like, how do we teach history when they don't appreciate it? Some of the kids do because they've come from countries
Mm.
and they're in Cyprus because it's safe.
Yeah.
Like, and for them, I find they're the most interested in history
Yeah.
because they are relating to either they've experienced it or their parents have directly experienced it, and they're aware that they're in Cyprus because their country's not safe.
Yeah.
And like, I found that quite difficult when I first came here. Kids would share about that, and I was like, ooh, like I think for me, I've come out of Northern Ireland to Cyprus, and it's like I can go home anytime I want. For them, they're like, I don't know if we'll go back. I don't know.
That's
if
so
we'll
scary.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
So yeah. Katie wants to know, are you gonna have some food? Katie, that's sorry, that was really far off.
Yes.
Yeah, no, but like kids saying, like you know that.
Oh, spamming.
She's spamming me.
Spamming me last night because I made toast at like 12 o'clock, like 10 o'clock at night. I was hungry and got me toast.
Oh, I'm glad you. When I came home from parents' evening too.
No, but I was in bed. And then I got up, so I was hungry. And Katie's like, what are you doing? I was like, making toast.
Well, I had scrambled egg on toast.
Huh?
I had scrambled egg on toast.
Oh, right, we've gone down a
No, we
tangent.
really have.
Right.
What was
I had
that?
mince and ties.
Oh, nice.
Like a full-on meal.
Yeah, but then I was
So
like,
hungry.
What did you have?
Mince and
pies.
pies.
Oh, I didn't know what you
Mince
said.
and pies.
Lovely.
Yeah. So like for those kids, I think they do find history that little bit more interesting. And we're studying ancient Egypt at the minute, and I have maybe 5 or 6 kids who are Egyptian, or their parents are half, whatever, and they're loving it. Like they literally.
I remember learning that in school.
Yeah.
I loved Egyptian
It's
history.
so
It was
interesting, and there's so much you can do, and I just love it. This kind of leads on to this. How do you incorporate primary sources? So like your documents, your artifacts, your pictures, your sound clips, whatever. How do you do that in class?
Well, at Easter, I'm going to go home, and my granny Jean, she won medals in the war, so we have them in the house. So I'm going to be bringing them back over.
Nice.
And I'm going to show them. They do know because I've shown them a picture of them, and they're like, whose medals are they? And I was like, oh, it's my great granny's. And they're like, because I think the girls loved it because I also was a woman. And then it wasn't just men that won medals.
Yes, indeed.
And so I'm going to bring them over, and so we can have a look at them.
Nice. That's good.
I love history that's hands-on. I like. There's time for a PowerPoint, 100%, and there's time for it, but then also get the pictures out, learn from my first history lesson of this topic for ancient Egypt. It was just pictures of artifacts, and the kids, like, it was actually quite funny because the kids really didn't understand anything about it, but they had to ask critical questions of what do you think it was used for, who do you think it belonged to, so all the kind of those critical thinking questions of like for history. The kids were doing that, so they're writing it like, why do you think it was important? Do you think it was important? And like some of them based prior knowledge. So I put a statue of a cat, which obviously was worshipped in ancient Egypt. So some of the girls knew that, and others were like, "Oh, it was so adorable." They were trying. Maybe they just like their pet. And I was like, oh,
that's just
but it's just so,
innocence,
just so innocent. But it's like
Yeah.
that critical thinking before me coming in being like, they worshipped cats. You know, like,
PowerPoint.
and I hate watching people who teach history and they teach it boring because I'm like, history's not boring.
No, history's fun.
I love history.
Yeah, for A level. No. A-level history was very difficult though,
Mhm.
and it did make me want to just
Yeah.
cry, but it was,
No, it was hard.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
difficult.
Yeah, but I like getting those kind of things and doing different things in history. Like one week having something like artifacts and pictures, then trying them to make models of something, like something just
Yeah.
to make it a bit more exciting. And we're going to do project. I've decided for ancient
Yeah.
Egypt. They'll have a few weeks to decide it, come back, present it. You've done so many days for
Yeah.
history, and I love that. What was your most recent one you've done?
So many days.
The Viking
Like
one.
your day where we came and looked at the project.
Yes. Yeah,
was
no,
like,
it was
could I
great.
imagine this?
So, what do you mean so many days?
So
Is that an expression?
No.
Oh,
I just
sorry.
mean you've had a lot of days where you
Well, no, I know what you mean. The fair, the Vikings fair.
Yes.
Okay. You know, it was
Oh,
ages
I
ago.
just did not
That was
think the
last
confusion
year.
as that was.
Yeah, no, and they did that at
Yeah.
home.
Mhm.
So because we didn't have enough time in class, they did. But they were really like, and so many of them did different things. So some were more digital, so they had like quizzes and stuff on it. Some had models and things. That was really good. Yeah, that's another good thing. Also, I'm remembering now. I have old Cyprus money before we joined the European Union
Ooh, that's
because I
cool.
kept some when we were joining.
The-
Yeah, the pound note.
Yeah.
So we had £1, like it was
Yeah.
Cyprus
Yeah.
pounds,
Yeah.
and it was like you
That's
just
so-
collected it. It was
Yeah.
like dollars, you know,
Mm.
like
Yeah.
so rich. You know?
But that's cool as well to bring in.
So I can bring. Yeah, I keep meaning to bring that
I'm gonna
in.
show it. This isn't. I don't think this is a primary source, but when we
Mm.
watched Spywatch is amazing. And Spywatch should be watched in
Sorry,
every
now you
primary
can-
school
yeah.
because it was unbelievable. We watched it when I was in primary school. I remember I think I was P5, and the teacher put it on. It was videotape, and she put it in, and we were like this glued to the screen. And there was always like cliffhangers at the end of every episode. And I thought, right, I'm just going to show grade 5 this and see what they think. And they loved it. And it was like the cliffhangers. But they could link the stuff that we were learning about just tied into the episodes. So when we were learning something new, they'd be like, "Oh, is it like that?" And Spywatch was like, "Yes." So they
It was
link
great.
Good.
When I taught grade 4, my first year here, we did the Shang Dynasty, and I'd never taught any of the dynasties before,
Mhm.
and I had very little knowledge. So for me, I was learning quite a lot as well. I was like, "Oh, this is great," but at the end of the year, I was like, "We could watch Mulan."
Yeah.
And then I was
love
like,
Mulan.
Mulan's my favorite Disney
great
film.
film.
Good primary
Disney.
source.
Literally. So I was like, we could watch Mulan. So like a Friday afternoon, I was like, right, we're gonna watch Mulan. So then put on. The kids were like, oh, Jade, like the precious stones they use, and then they were like there was literally so much. There was ancestor worship in it at the start, which we'd looked at.
Yeah.
They were naming all the things, and I was like, oh, this
Oh,
is educational. I was like,
brilliant,
yep,
brilliant.
this is fine. I was like, brilliant.
That's
Yeah.
brilliant.
That is very
Spywatch
good.
Mulan.
And Mulan, yeah, what more do you need?
I love Spywatch. Yeah.
Spywatch is a good film.
And silly songs, I love them too.
The Chad.
The Chad. Yeah. And the Snoop.
Yeah.
No idea.
And then
Yeah.
No.
last question. I think this might be one of the hardest things about teaching history. How do you assess students' understanding and their engagement? Like, how do you assess history, like for the reports for different things?
I mean, for me, mainly the test is the biggest assessment. But like when we did the project, I was assessing their
Yeah.
projects too. So we had that, and I gave them criteria at the beginning. I was like, your project. So who's the Vikings? I'm trying to remember. So I was like, you pick a topic in the Vikings, and then you have to include this, this, and this. So they knew
Yeah.
what was expected, and then it wasn't like a surprise, like, oh, I'll just.
No, yeah.
So sometimes they know. Engagement in the class, asking questions, getting involved, that kind of thing.
Like presenting as well. Like you know, when I had those, honestly, that lesson, it really threw me how good it was because I thought boring. Like they're looking at pictures, exciting, but I thought they're going to ask stupid questions. I just know it. I had a vibe about this class, and they proved me wrong. I was like, oh, bravo, my little charming
That's good,
children.
yeah.
But they, like when they came back to feedback to me what they thought it was used for, they had so many ideas, but they all were involved. Like
Yeah.
they all
that's good.
said something.
Yeah.
You always end up with one kid sitting in the group just being like,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
and I'm like, I can clearly see you or not.
When I did the Holocaust lesson, I was expecting some of them to be a bit like not really listening, but they were like so like I said like some of them were sitting in the reading corner when I was doing it, and I didn't really mind because they were listening. And like the next week they're like, "Yes, are you gonna do the exact same thing you did last week? You just talk to us for 2 minutes." I said, "You know what?" I said, "Yeah, why not?"
Yeah. And I think there's a time and place for that. I mean,
Oh,
I
yeah.
think think a mixture is good.
Yeah.
You just
No,
know
100%.
what works best,
Mhm.
Mhm.
and they see that topic is just so like detailed in itself and interesting, if you can use the word, that
Yeah,
it
that's
gets
true,
their
yeah.
attention anyway.
Yeah.
And them asking questions is fine.
Mm.
I
Oh,
find
absolutely,
in
yeah.
history, sometimes I'm so conscious of my time that I'm like, right, I need to rush this lesson. I'm like, no,
Yeah.
if they are asking questions,
Yeah.
they're like furthering their understanding. They are, why am I
Yeah, and
rushing them to do a worksheet?
Yeah, and also like telling them what the next topic is. So do you, if you have any questions about that, ask it now, and then you can tailor it.
Yeah.
You know?
Sometimes I don't even do a worksheet in history because honestly,
Yeah.
No, girls, same.
no.
it's just not like sometimes discussions actually far better than
And I love a group presentation for history
Yes,
and them
yeah.
coming back presenting
Yeah.
it, or
Mm.
like even we were doing mummification this week. Like they were freaked out. Like I
No
found
wonder.
the Dr. Binox video was quite intense actually, and normally he's okay, but they pull the brain, they pull the brain out of the nose, and
Yeah.
right, so it
Yeah.
showed it coming, and my kids were like,
Whoa.
and I was like, wow. But then I did this thing where they had to write a letter to a person in the future. So they were imagining they were a mummifier, which apparently is the official term, and I was like, ooh, didn't know that. So they are writing as a mummifier to somebody in the future, explaining the process. And like some of them, they did really, really good writing. And I don't always get them to write, but that was like, oh no, this is cool.
Yeah.
They were like, dear person of the future.
there's I was about to teach one of the history lessons and Helen comes in and she goes, oh, can such and such, they have to go now.
Yeah.
And they were like, no, miss, I want to stay for history. I was like,
Aw.
off you go.
My
I
kids
felt so
tell-
bad for her. I was like, oh.
I know my kids tell me history's their favorite, and I'm
Yeah.
like, yes. But I'm like, is it because it's my passion as
I
well?
think because I like
Like,
teaching
yeah.
it.
That I've
Definitely,
got
if
them
you
into it.
enjoy something, they enjoy
They're
it.
up on it.
Yeah.
Like other subjects I'm teaching that I'm just a bit oof about. I'm like,
I know you really have to psych yourself up.
You
for
do.
it.
It depends what it is in some subjects. So,
oh,
like,
I,
but history is,
yeah.
it's definitely my favorite
Oh, I
to
love
teach.
history. There's just so much in it. There's so much you can do. Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Shout out history.
Shout out to history. And you know what they say about history? It always repeats itself.
Hope not.
But,
Well,
Lovely.
on that note.
on that note,
And also, Sarah, you haven't changed your clock and it's really driving me crazy.
Oh yeah.
history's living in the past.
You were quick there.
I was.
That was a good one.
Okay.
Very good.
Bye.
Bye.
Subscribe.